Hello there, disciples of the bad dude philosophy. Today I have some intellectual stimulation for you. Does God exist? So, a YouTuber alike called RockinMrE made a video called Proving God Exists, and it was a cool video with some good argumentation. I like his channel and I agree with a lot of his ideas, although I'm not fully on board with the religious, spiritual stuff. So my response to his video on proving God exists. But hear me out, because this video is not what you expect. A bit of a backstory first. I rejected Christianity years ago, even though I was raised to be religious. I did that because the holy texts don't make sense. They are poorly written, poor in content compared to other historical texts like ancient Greek texts, a lot of which is so obviously superior. Plus, these religious texts have a flawed perception of reality. They are lacking and were evidently written by ancient, ignorant humans who made sense of whatever wisdom they had at the time and with whatever severely limited understanding they had of nature. And the most striking evidence against mainstream religions, and I'm talking mainly about the three evangelical Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, is that it's illogical for the creator of existence to want to communicate the most important message to his creations, a message on which their salvation depends, and choose to send ignorant, unconvincing, incomprehensible, uncharismatic desert dwellers in a specific region of the planet during a very narrow time frame, while ignoring other continents and other eras when people will be damned to hell because they never believed in the quote-unquote true God, because they'd never even heard of his message. They were never given the fair opportunity. So that doesn't make sense. And the free will stuff, I don't buy it. There's no free will clearly mentioned anywhere in the Bible, and there's only huge stretches at best. And even if there were mentions of free will, it still doesn't make sense. You can't leave a child in a kitchen and let it choose freely. By which unchosen parameters will it choose? Which given thought algorithms will process information to come to a decision? How free is free will? A child alone in a kitchen doesn't have the capacity to choose the healthy food over the sweets, and will probably start playing with knives without being fully aware of the danger, since it lacks intelligence and experience that it never received from its guardians. No, this guilting bullshit of Christianity with the primal sin that burdens you since before you were born doesn't make sense. You can't create a flawed being, program it with instincts and needs and flaws, not provide any convincing official and sufficiently convincing info on how it should operate, and then say that the being is guilty for quote-unquote freely choosing, with given thought processes, to submit to its externally programmed urges. See my thin line video which expands on when you should be accountable and when you should not. Also, something that tells me that humans are insignificant to this reality is the fact that Siamese people exist. What kind of existence is that, and where does individuality begin and end there? It's a totally random manifestation of natural randomness and apathy. And together with infant mortality or two babies born with their brains connected, it tells me that this hypothetical creator does not care about our individuality or the human condition in general. Unless he does, but is incapable of rectifying such errors, in which case there's forces beyond him. Anyway, the universe seems random, from the tectonics and geography of the Earth to stars colliding and black holes devouring whole star systems, to how disease strikes people so randomly, and to which parents we are born. It's random, merciless, and blind to justice or meaning, no matter how much you delude yourself of it being a divine plan, a stretch to say the least. However, I don't rule out the possibility that a higher being exists, and I'm open to the notion of an indifferent supreme being existing. Because the universe has rules. No matter how many experiments of randomness you do, You need to start them with defined rules. Even if you shuffle a card deck, it has to have a non-random rule of it having to be sufficiently randomized. So yeah, maybe there is a higher being responsible for this. And maybe the infinite regression question of who then created that being could be cyclical, I don't know, or invalid if you consider other dimensions. For example, a timeless supreme being. Maybe that being is timeless and has no need for causality. Who the fuck knows? But here is my position. If that supernatural being exists, it's definitely not benevolent, or maybe not even conscious. And it's not all powerful because obviously it has limits over the control of existence. It would appear that all life is simply a momentary cheating of entropy, in which by the time one organism dies due to the inevitable laws of physics, it creates another organism just in time, and that organism does the same thing over and over. It's like something wanting life to exist, but can't seem to be able to make an immortal organism. And so life as we know it, limited and replicating, is the next best thing, a cheap alternative, an adaptation to the laws of physics, not a control over them. It's like something wants life to exist but can't adjust the laws of physics to be able to sustain it. So this thing finds a random favorable Goldilocks zone and creates inefficient biological energy systems which can sustain life just long enough for it to reproduce on and on. What can you deduce from this about this being, which we'll call God, by looking at the world? Pain, suffering, struggle, a life at the mercy of the hostile laws of physics, and a world which, most of it by far, cannot sustain life. If this being exists, it doesn't care about our well-being, but it seems to care about us procreating, because life is built around the survival of life as a whole, but not the survival of the individual. If there's a purpose to that, who the hell knows what that is? At best, this hypothetical supreme being is indifferent and maybe unconscious. Just like you are indifferent of the well-being of an NPC in a video game. You enjoy the game, but you wouldn't care less about the NPC. At worst, this being wants us to suffer and derives some kind of value from experiencing his creations the way they are, flawed, programmed with instincts, needs, and limitations, and with little control over the life, thought, emotions, destiny, and potential. So this is my take on proving God exists. Basically, I consider atheism and religiosity to be two extremes and that the truth is somewhere in the middle, but we're incapable of ever knowing. So I just stopped giving a fuck trying to figure out religion and existence because greater men than me have been trying to figure this one out for thousands of years and came up with nothing. So just chill, watch this video, enjoy the stimulation, and move on. What do you think? What's your take on religion? Give me a comment below. Thanks for listening. You're awesome.